What's going on, people of the internet? Welcome back to another episode of the Waveform podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Marques.
And I'm Andrew.
And today we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about from this week. First of all, we want to talk about some new EV stuff and how a bunch of these new EV startups like to move and maneuver. And maybe
that's a nice way of putting it.
A little bit of a rant probably in there. But also we have a bit of a fun segment talking about cameras in smartphone presentations and how that's evolved over time, because that's been super fun. But first, one of the most common questions that I actually get from people when they ask about my job, like it's a common interview question and an on-stage question, is what would you do if YouTube disappeared? What would you do if YouTube died tomorrow?
So like if YouTube died, what would you do? Like where would you move your stuff, or would you do a different job, or all encompassing?
It's always about like how much dependence we have on this platform.
YouTube, sure.
And maybe someday YouTube's they change a rule that screws us over, or they disappear, or something happens like that. And my answer is always, YouTube is far too stable to be like overly focusing on that. I get it. It's a great economic question, but YouTube, I have a lot of trust in them right now.
Yeah.
And the answer always comes from looking at YouTube's competition, which is like, what are the alternatives to YouTube? Like if I'm going to go watch a video on the internet, I want to know what the new iPhone SE looks like. I'm just going to go on youtube.com and search iPhone SE. Or I'm just going to go to google.com and search iPhone SE, and it's going to show me a bunch of YouTube videos.
Or articles with embedded YouTube videos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the biggest competition really right now is Vimeo.
Yeah.
That's the biggest competition to YouTube?
Sort of. At least I feel like it used to feel like it.
I mean, there's the Netflixes and other stuff, but I'm just talking about like user-generated content, like regular people uploading videos online. Vimeo does exist.
Platform, yeah.
Exactly. And the reason that we bring up Vimeo is there was a headline or an article this week. I'm just going to read the headline, and maybe you can break this down a bit, because I thought this was crazy. Vimeo is telling creators to suddenly pay thousands of dollars or leave the platform.
Yeah.
What? I know that there's a pro account you can have on Vimeo.
Yeah, there's business and pro accounts. And actually, even the creators have accounts. And this is kind of news to me because of this article, but the prices there aren't too bad. I think the two main kind of like creator, not business charges are like $7 a month to $20 a month. So
yeah, I have one.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you upload anything on Vimeo?
No, but I want to know what features you get for that. And you can like replace videos at the same URL on Vimeo. And I was like, that's a cool feature.
It is.
And then I never use it.
Yeah. Well, you don't use Vimeo at all,
Not
right?
actively. No.
So like, before we go into this, I just want to, Vimeo did used to be kind of that, it was like kind of what the non-mainstream people wanted to use instead of YouTube. And I was always one of those people. Do you remember Google videos?
Yes.
Me and my friend uploaded everything to Google videos, not YouTube, because, I was that cool little rebel kid that wanted to do everything different. That bit me in the butt.
I do remember Vimeo had its biggest heyday in my memory as like the filmmakers YouTube, basically.
Everything I did in film school was uploaded to Vimeo.
All the compression looked better.
Oh, yeah.
All the videos in general playing back on Vimeo looked better. And that's where you'd find most people's like short film type projects and stuff.
And then I also kind of felt like, as just like an internet user, you go a little step further than that when YouTube was really cracking down on copyrighted music. When they used to not switch it, they used to just take all, like the amount of Ultimate videos I've created that all the music's gotten taken off of on YouTube was a lot. So you would upload to Vimeo. Vimeo became like the place to upload copyrighted stuff.
All of the Stevens Ultimate highlight reels that all feature, I think, Taylor Swift songs are all on Vimeo.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true.
To me, back then, Vimeo was the less popular YouTube, but copyrighted music and generally, like you said, better compression, just better looking videos. So for like film students, it worked really, really well. Yeah. So that's still, I think, what Vimeo is to me now, because it hasn't been that relevant in my mind. Since then, I still go back and try and watch old videos, because some of the best old Callahan videos used to be on Vimeo.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Yep. So going through this article, by the way, it's an article on The Verge. We'll put it in the show notes if you want everything. But there are two main examples in here that I wanted to bring up that really interest me and like was kind of outstanding. It seems like Vimeo they also do business accounts, which are ranging from around, I think, $50 to $75 a month. So I think they're pushing towards business stuff a lot. But the last time though I really heard Vimeo at all, really in like the last decade in terms of non-business but more creative side, was Jack Conte did an interview. He's the CEO of Patreon, and he was talking about, which I didn't realize, all the videos uploaded on Patreon are actually through Vimeo. Vimeo is just the default video hosting platform for Patreon.
Right.
And for some reason you don't know what Patreon is, website where you can pay monthly to support a creator, and a lot of times they wind up giving you exclusive access to something, whether that's extra videos or Q&As that they make on the channel, whether they upload stuff early. But pretty much it's way smaller amount of people watching, but you're paying to watch it. So it's a great way to support creators.
And it's like a really nice, like you can password protect individual videos. Like you can make it much more locked down than a YouTube video. So it's like, it made sense. Yeah, they built that really well.
Yeah, it works. So the partnership there, when I heard about that, seemed amazing to me because Patreon is awesome, but it focuses more on how to support the creators. And then Vimeo does have all the upload capabilities, but not a lot of people use it. So this felt like the perfect mesh to me.
Yeah.
But because of this mesh is where we're seeing now this story develop, which is essentially, I guess Vimeo is getting to the point where to them, these creators are using a lot more bandwidth they expected, and they're charging them money. Problem is they're just kind of coming out of nowhere with these charges. So the first example, so there's a user on Patreon who said they were paying $200 a year, and they were okay with that. It's a good quality platform. It works perfectly with Patreon, obviously. They had 117 subscriber-only videos, each of them averaging around 150 views, and their most viewed video was 815. On March 11th, Vimeo sent her an invoice that said her bandwidth was within the top 1% of Vimeo users, and that if she wanted to keep hosting her content on the site, she'd need to upgrade to a custom plan quoted at $3,500 a year. And she was given 1 week to upgrade, decrease her bandwidth, or leave Vimeo.
Wait, okay.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah,
there,
wow.
I think,
Okay.
or a couple things really stick out.
So to end up in the top 1% of Vimeo users, 100 videos averaging 150 views puts you in the top one. What? Really? That's all you have to do? I kind of don't believe.
I know Vimeo is small, but that seems
that seems
insane.
off. That seems like she's like watching billions of hours of videos from one account. Like someone else has a login to her account and is just watching a million things.
Well, this is people watching her stuff. Like she's getting charged based on how many people watch her content.
That's it.
So that $3,500 for, I mean, I doubt the 117 videos were all in 1 year, but $3,500 a year, 150 views average. She's never broken 1,000, which for Patreon, those are great numbers. Like if you're thinking about somebody paying $5 a pop for each of those, like, and then getting the cut, that's fantastic. But the fact that they just give her 1 week, $3,500 a year, or she can just leave Vimeo.
Yeah, that's pretty bad look. And that's another one of those decisions we've talked about on the podcast before where you're like, as you are Vimeo writing out this email, you're like, yeah, this is going to suck. This is going to make a lot of people really mad. And there's going to be a lot of articles written about how heartless this is, but we got to do what we got to do. That's crazy. $3,000 a year.
Top 1% though, just really, it can't mean that Vimeo is doing great, at least on the creative side. I know nothing about their business side, and I just want to make that super clear here. If they've been around for this long, something over there is obviously doing okay. But the creative side of this, that's brutal.
Yeah, I feel like I get the B2B part of Vimeo better now than this weird attempt at charging creators. That's crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, and they were charging a bit, but she said she was paying $200 a year, now going up to $3,500 a year.
Which is probably more than you made from the Patreon videos that you were creating in the first place.
Possibly. I don't know exactly how the math checks out or what their levels of everything were. But then there was the other kind of bigger example of this was, do you know the YouTube Channel 5? It used to be, or it's the guy from All Gas No Breaks, I believe.
Oh, no.
He's kind of like goes to a lot of big events, a lot of them political, and kind of has like a funny news report interview style. I guarantee you've seen some of the interviews he's done. His name's Andrew, and his stuff's really funny. And his YouTube channel is huge. He's got like, it's a new channel ever since he split and getting over 1 million subscribers, probably 1 to 2 million views a piece. But he releases everything on Patreon early to a pretty big Patreon audience. So he, the other day, logged onto Patreon, had 200 messages and lost 500 patrons, and all of them were complaining that none of their content was there anymore. So Vimeo took hostage, essentially, of all of his videos, and then told him for a 2-year plan, he's going to have to pay $16,000 to get his stuff. Now, his stuff, these are a lot more users, a lot more people watching. His videos are generally like 30 to 40 minutes, so it clearly is way, way more bandwidth.
Yeah.
But $16,000, it's not even pay it now or you'll lose it. It's gone. I've already basically pissed off all of your patrons, and if you want it back,
what kind
here
of
it is.
Weird backwards policy is that?
It's
That's
insane.
the strangest. The thing is, like, when you're signing up for Patreon, you just think you're uploading to Patreon's video player. Like, you don't.
I'm so glad you said that. When this happened, he first contacted Patreon, and then when they told him Vimeo is the one who did it, he said, I don't know what that is. He's just been default uploading to Patreon the whole time.
Exactly.
And didn't know it was embedded.
Yeah, that's how well they've plugged in. Is like it's really well integrated, and that's why they went with Vimeo. But now, people, when Vimeo makes a crazy change like this, Patreon looks terrible.
Patreon looks really bad in this, unfortunately. Which it's a shame. Patreon's all we don't have a Patreon, but I really, really like what they're doing and a way to help creators. So essentially, luckily, he has all of the videos already. They're also all mostly on his YouTube channel now because he was just releasing things early. The problem is he said his favorite part about Patreon is having the more exclusive comments and reactions, stuff he can read a little easier. And if he gets rid of all these, he loses all of that. If he has to re-upload everything, he loses all the comments on old videos and stuff like that, and everyone gets spammed on his patrons. And he's lost over 500 paying patrons.
So this is another one of those head scratching decisions. Do you think Vimeo did the math and they were like, yeah, some people are going to pay and this will be worth it? $16,000 for what, a 2-year plan?
Yeah.
So $8,000 a year. God, for what? I mean, what are you getting extra out of uploading to Vimeo other than maybe a couple special, like, obviously it's branded videos and certain privacy protections that Vimeo offers, and still maybe copyright music protection, but $8,000?
Well, I don't even know what they do with copyright stuff anymore because that was old Vimeo. Yeah, I'm sure they're getting hit with that because Twitch is getting hit really hard with that as well. It basically feels like the password protection, and YouTube can embed into things just as easily. It feels like if YouTube added password protection, because you can't just unlist a video and put it on Patreon, because then people can share that link and it'll go everywhere. So it makes it much harder. I didn't even think of this, but it feels like YouTube could kind of squash this if they did a password protected or account specific linked.
So this is the thing. This is why YouTube doesn't have to evolve as quickly, is because they don't have to do anything now. Vimeo is killing it all by themselves by deciding to now charge people $8,000 a year for a couple thousand views or whatever they're generating, which is like, obviously the question of will YouTube ever die will come from like a competitor that comes up, doesn't make those type of mistakes, and eats YouTube lunch in some type of way, and does like probably something better than what YouTube does in order to actually convince people to switch. Because if you just built another YouTube today, even if it's feature for feature the same thing, there's still no reason to switch. It kind of reminds me of trying to get people to switch like cell phone carriers. A lot of people just don't want to switch. They're like, I don't know, I like my phone number, my phone works fine. You're offering me the same data plan, but on a different carrier. You have to be better than what exists to get people to switch.
Yes, something has to be better.
And should that thing ever arrive, it will be so incredibly obvious that we'll have time to react to it. And clearly Vimeo ain't it.
Yeah. I hate to, because Vimeo does hold that old nostalgic special place in my heart. When I think of Vimeo, I think of like the Will Neff Callahan video, like one of my favorites ever. If you're an ultimate nerd,
Nick Lance one. Oh, no, that's YouTube still.
I think he was YouTube. Yeah, it was like just a couple years before him, back in the like Mama Bird, Michigan, Glory Days. I mean, not that they're not Glory Days. I think a lot of Oregon videos were on there. Yeah. So sorry, a little ultimate nerding here, but yeah, seems pretty brutal. Some of those prices were insane, but I still think the most crazy part to me is averaging 150 views puts you in the top 1%.
That is the craziest part of that to me. I mean, if that's true, if averaging 100 to 150 views or whatever it is puts you in the top 1%, imagine what the top 1% of YouTube channels generate and what kind of bandwidth that is that YouTube's supporting.
Yeah.
That is a massive difference.
It's crazy. And that's also the reason why I'm really interested to see where Patreon goes in this step, because Vimeo doesn't seem to be that.
Right.
Because if you're charging that much, you kind of need those amount of views on Patreon to really, be a full-time creator. It helps a whole lot.
Yeah.
But that means Patreon's also going to realize, like, wow, we do have to, like, you still do have to hold that bandwidth and pay for that bandwidth. Someone has to. How are you making this split now? And then how is this going to benefit creators on Patreon? Are you going to start cutting into their resources really hard? Or I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah,
we'll see. We'll keep an eye on this. We'll see what Patreon does over time. I'm sure we'll link any update articles if we find them in the show notes. Yeah. But we got to take a quick break and come back because we want to talk about cameras for a little bit. All right, I have a new favorite tweet. I need to share this with you. This is great. I pinned this for Waveform because I want to talk about it, and there's just so much here. I tweeted actually probably like 2-3 weeks ago, and a lot of people were like roasting me about it, but I'm fine with it. Which is just that it seems like 75% of new smartphone presentations these days are just camera. And then I had a bunch of people going, well, all you ever talk about is a camera. I wasn't complaining. I was just saying that's true. That's one of the most, they'll go battery, spec, screen, camera feature.
It's always at the end, and they usually seem to end on
so much time on camera. And it didn't always used to be this way. So I just kind of tweeted that thought out there, and then that was that.
Yeah.
So sure enough, last week, a tweet from a user named Lee94Josh showed up on my timeline, where he actually went back and watched every single iPhone keynote since the first one and spent out, and he actually counted how much time was spent talking about the phone and how much of that time was specifically spent talking about the cameras. And he graphed it all out.
Yeah.
And now I want to go through this because this is now real evidence that more and more time has been spent talking about the cameras. So I guess we can just start with the first Apple event, right? The first Apple event was in 2007. It was kind of one of those iconic, like, massive things. But I don't know if you remember when we reviewed every single iPhone, the camera wasn't really a big feature on the iPhone in the first few.
Yeah.
So they didn't have much to talk about.
Well, because if you think about it, while smartphones were revolutionary and the iPhone kind of revolutionized smartphones, there were cameras in phones before that. Like, I had flip phones with cameras, and they were rough. And they were rough to look at. Yeah,
just like a basic 3-megapixel webcam, like nothing too crazy. Like, you could send a picture of like where you were to see. Yeah.
Or you just like, have a couple of things to scroll through on your little flip phone. But like, they were there, and the iPhone didn't upgrade that at all. That wasn't the focus on the first iPhone, for sure.
For sure. So the first iPhone, 2007, they spent 79 minutes talking about this new revolutionary product. To me, that seems about right. Like, they could spend an hour plus
I'm
easily.
Honestly surprised not more if it's your first product, the first big product like that you're talking about.
It was good. It was good. And for those 79 minutes, they spent 10 seconds talking about the camera.
Let's look at the back. On the back, the biggest thing of note is we got a 2-megapixel camera built right in. The other side, and we're back on the front.
Sounds about right. Hey, it has a camera on the back. You can do X, Y, and Z with it. It's a good time. Moving on. That was 0.2% of the presentation. If you move up all the way now to iPhone 13 in 2021, they spent 33% of the entire presentation on the camera. That was a 42-minute presentation for the iPhone, which, that's the 13 mini, the 13 Max, 13 whatever.
Yeah.
And 14 of those minutes were spent talking about the camera. That's not actually the highest. The highest was in 2019, iPhone 11 spent 35%. But you can see clearly the last 3 years have been more than ever on the camera. You kind of see like the little brackets of 0%, then a bunch of teen percents, and then a bunch of 20%, and now the last 3 years are 30%.
Yeah.
But even inside of this, there's so many interesting ones.
Yeah.
If you're listening for audio right now, I beg you, come watch the video version of just this part.
Find the tweet at least so you have some reference.
So you can look at this graph. It's fascinating. Okay. My favorite one is probably the iPhone 3GS because it's the longest ever that the iPhone 3G.
Yeah.
Longest they've ever spent in a presentation talking just iPhone. It's the first iPhone upgrade ever. It's the 3G one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they did a bunch of new stuff. 100 minutes
on presentation
on the new iPhone. Can you imagine 100 minutes on a new phone today? And they spent 3 seconds.
And that's one phone, not 4 phones. We're at 4 phones now, and they're spending 40 minutes.
Yeah, there was no mini plus to explain.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one new phone. 100 minutes of talking about a new upgrade. 3 seconds on the camera.
Yeah.
My favorite part, we have a clip of those 3 seconds, and we're going to play it right now. It's a generous 3 seconds.
Very.
The same gorgeous 3.5-inch display. Camera.
That was it.
Beautiful.
That was the whole that was the entire 3 seconds.
I think the context of it is they're pretty much just going through like what's on the camera.
Yeah.
Or what's on the iPhone.
Yeah.
But yeah, very generous. I think some of my favorite things to look at here are looking at the differences between 2 years adjacent to each other. So like there's kind of some big jumps, and then usually in those jumps you can find the thing, like what the upgrade was and why they were so impressed and like wanted to talk that much more about it.
Yeah.
So like you went from the 3G to the 3GS, which was 3 seconds to 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Like that is a huge jump. You went from 0.05% to 25%.
Yeah.
Of the entire, although the 3GS was only an 18-minute presentation, I believe. Was that WWDC that year?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So 3GS was the first ever S upgrade. So you can imagine, all right, it's only an 18-minute presentation. Like we don't have a ton to say because it's the same design, but there's a few key things in this new design that are upgraded. One of them was this was the first ever camera upgrade. I think it went from 2 megapixels to 5, something like that.
I think, it looks like most of them were at 5 because then the first big jump was from the 4 to the 4S.
We did a graph. We have a graph of this. When I reviewed every iPhone.
Oh, did we? No, I do not have that graph.
Let me pull up that graph too. So we reviewed every iPhone. And at the end, we had all these great charts. And if you've seen that video, then you've seen those charts. One of them was iPhone megapixel count over the years.
Oh, yeah?
And let me just see if I can fast forward. Yep, found it. And they had a 2 megapixel camera for the first 2 iPhones, and then the 3GS was the first ever upgrade, and it went to a 3 megapixel camera.
Boom. That 1 megapixel warranted an extra 4 minutes of talking about the camera. So
exactly.
Bravo.
But it's the one, like it's an S update, so there's not a lot new.
Yeah.
So only things they changed, I think, were speed. It was a new processor. Camera, it was an upgraded camera.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you have to talk about that for 25% of the presentation.
Yeah.
It seems like megapixel bumps seems to be where we see a lot of these spikes. So from the 4 to the 4S, they doubled the time they talked about the cameras from 4 minutes to 8 minutes. And they also happened to bump the camera up to 8 megapixels that year. Mm-hmm. Then they did another bump from the 6 to the 6X. That was 8 to 12. But the selfie camera went from 1.2 megapixel to 5 megapixels.
So that was the thing I was going to mention about 4S. That was the first ever selfie camera.
Yes.
So they had to spend time talking about FaceTime and like what you can do with a front-facing camera.
But 3GS to 4, they spent less time. They went down in time talking about the camera. So maybe they focused more on talking about
that was the new design.
FaceTime? New design. Okay.
Yeah, 4 was like, okay, now we're up to 52 minutes again. Talking about all this new, this is the biggest like new looking iPhone.
Yeah, so percentage wise, they talked way less about it, but even in just pure time spoken, in the 3GS 4 minutes 30 seconds, in the iPhone 4 with a whole new camera, a selfie camera, first time, they spent 30 less seconds talking about it. I think that's the most fascinating decrease, and then while adding something, so that just seems to stand out to me a lot.
And then, the longest ever was iPhone 11, 20 minutes talking about just camera. which is
Longest, yeah.
massive. 20 minutes just about a camera.
So
And even,
do you remember what 11 was though?
11, so we got the ultra wide for the first time.
Yes, but there was also, that's deep fusion too, right?
Oh,
And remember how long they talked about that for it to not even come out?
to
with
be
it?
a small update later in a software.
There was a
update.
very long, there's two main big camera like features I remember them talking about that took way longer in the explanation than I feel like warranted, and that was deep fusion and cinematic mode. Both of those had like insanely long extra pieces to the camera
with examples and low light shots and focus racking. Yep.
And I can't tell you a single person that I know, even in the tech world right now, that is like, oh, I love deep fusion or I love cinematic mode, or it's for how much time they spend with it. It doesn't seem like people care.
I'm just happy somebody actually went through and charted all this stuff, because I had the thought, and actually I had the thought because I was watching, I think I was in a briefing or some meeting where they were going over a phone, and I think this ratio is even higher with some other companies.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might have been either a OnePlus or a Xiaomi phone or something like that, where I think it was over half. I think clearly easily over half of the presentation was camera. Because they didn't have a whole lot of new stuff. It was like, here's a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. It's fast. It cools. We have a high refresh rate screen and fast charging again. Camera feature, low light camera, video camera, high res mode, cinematic mode, portrait mode. Like, they wanted to go over all the AI stuff, all the color they've been doing, tons and tons of camera features. And I was like, it at least was 75% of the slides. I'll put it that way. So yeah, this is what differentiates smartphones at the highest level. They're all pretty fast. They all have pretty good screens.
I would love to see, with all the phones taken into account, all the presentations taken into account, who was the longest? Like
who spent the most time?
Longest, and then who spent the most percentage-wise on one? Because I do feel like I remember somewhere it feels like they're only, I don't think it's OnePlus, because OnePlus also likes to focus on charging so much.
I just remember when they did the Hasselblad thing.
That was a lot.
They had to do so much camera stuff. They talked about Hasselblad. They talked about what the partnership
the
meant,
guy in the
and
helicopter,
history,
and like everything.
all this camera. Even if they're not showing examples, they're just talking about Hasselblad and camera stuff.
And then Samsung, like 100x space zoom. They had who were the two guys that were like up by the bridge in San Francisco? Like
the demo with the 100x.
Yeah, like they do all those crazy demos, and it seems like it's focusing almost more on all the. It's kind of a shame because it's focusing more on these like collaborations they do to attempt to show it off, but it just turns into more of like a commercial and less about actually the camera and how normal people are using it. But there's a reason. People say this a lot to us too. Why do tech reviewers focus so much on the camera? And because honestly, it's the biggest gap you can see between a lot of phones.
Difference.
And the biggest thing, every single person who uses that phone, whether you're a huge tech head or a completely average Joe user, like you're going to be like, this camera looks better. Every time you buy a new phone, you're gonna be like, oh my goodness, these pictures are so much better.
Yeah. That's really what it comes down to for me. The biggest difference in phones in battery life will be like either, oh yeah, I can kill this one in a day, or yeah, this one has pretty good battery life. It'll last you longer than a day.
Yeah.
The biggest difference between speaker quality is what? Like, this one's not that loud. Oh, this one's nice and rich. Okay, great. But the difference in cameras is like, that's one feature that pretty much everyone uses at some point on their phone. A lot of people are like, I have kids. I want to be able to remember these like moments. I need it to have a good camera. And if it has a bad camera, it's going to ruin my whole phone experience. And some just don't have good cameras. Some are just not good for that type of thing. And some are better at it. Some are really good at it. And that's a really meaningful thing to a lot of people. I remember my 5 pillars of a great smartphone. For me as a reviewer, I narrowed it down to 5.
Yeah.
It was performance, battery, software, camera, and build quality, basically. And like, even as a reviewer, if it's only 5, I think for a normal person, they're like, I'm going to get this new phone. I need it to have a good battery, good screen, good camera. It's just 3. And it probably has to be an iPhone for most people. But like, that's software. So 3 or 4 things. So yeah, if it narrows down to 3 or 4 things, then those things are going to get the most airtime. And it turns out the camera is probably number 1.
And I think the fact that we are reviewing dozens and dozens of phones every single year and are still seeing these big differences in cameras, when you think of the average person upgrading 2 or 3 years down the line, that camera jump is going to be the biggest jump they encounter when they upgrade. Claire usually, I upgrade her with a phone that's like 2 years old every year. And every time she gets it, she's like, I can't believe how good this camera is. She takes pictures and she's like, this looks so good. Like, I'm so happy with this. And she's using like an S10e right now and is still amazed at the camera.
That's one of the funny things about like the way phones have gotten better is if you look at a phone 6 years ago, when it first came out, we were all like, does the battery last a whole day? Yeah, good. 6 years later, does the battery last a whole day? Yeah, okay, good. It's like the battery capacity had to change massively inside the phone to achieve the same goal.
Yeah.
And then same thing with like speakers. Like the screens are bigger and they look much better than 6 years ago. But if you show someone a photo from a camera from 6 years ago, from like an iPhone 6 versus a 13, it is a dramatic difference, especially video, all this stuff. That is consistently true about these things.
I go back and watch our old videos all the time, and it's like, it'll be videos raving about the camera, and I look at it and it's like,
it looks foggy.
Dear
like,
Lord. Did you clean that lens off before you took that picture?
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking, before we switch to our next topic here of new phones, I know it's turned into kind of a meme here with my Pixel 4 XL, but I finally bought a new phone. I was really hoping it would get here before today's episode so I could show it off. But
which one did you order?
I'm not going to say that. I'm going to let people guess. Because I have talked about wanting basically every single phone. Let's see. Guess in the comments. Guess on Twitter. I'd like to know what you guys think. I've talked highly of a lot of.
Do you want to leave it open-ended or do you want to do multiple choice? Give people.
We could do a poll on Twitter.
Yeah, we could do a poll.
I think there's a couple I've talked about that will narrow it down enough. But I'd like to know what people think.
I would be very interested if one phone wins by a lot and it's totally not the one you got. I'm very curious now to see what people say.
It's at the point where I feel like people just, whenever they like tweet at me, they just have to mention that I'm still using a Pixel 4.
Yeah.
And it's just be like, okay. Yeah,
by the next episode, we'll know.
By the next episode, we'll know. Okay. Hopefully, the FedEx tracking has moved like one state in like 4 days. So I'm not that confident about it. But all right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I'm just going to rant about a new EV.
All right, we're back. Welcome to the EV section of WaveForm.
Yeah.
No, look, so this is a video we've been sort of working on in the background for a while because I have a lot of thoughts on this, but about like the EV car space and how uncertain and weird it is, amplified by the chip shortage, amplified by the fact that EVs are hard to make, and cars in general are just a crazy market to be in right now. But like trying to order an EV today is crazy. The actual experience of like, there's an announcement. Is it real? Will I get it if I order it? Should I pre-order? It's $100 to reserve my place in line. Will it ever there's so many weird questions.
The $100 refundable thing is still baffling to me, honestly.
And we talked about Rivian. We've talked about the F-150 Lightning. You can get in line. The Cybertruck, like how long that's been on order. And then you look as far back as like, I technically ordered a Tesla Roadster in 2017, and that's still not out yet. And then there's the Faraday Futures of the world, and it's just like, I don't know what is even coming out anymore.
It's a confusing. It
is. And then today, I opened up Instagram at like 9 in the morning. It was way too early for this. And I got an ad for this electric car company that I've never heard of, which is not uncommon. But it was actually just straight up asking me to invest in the company in an Instagram ad.
Yeah, can you read what it said on there?
But it was just a picture of a pickup truck. And it said, our Reg A+ funding round is closing soon. Invest in Atlas Motor Vehicles today. And don't forget to check out bonus benefits and incentives.
Yeah, and also just to like paint the picture a little better, it's a photo of a pickup truck with like, if whenever cars are kind of testing new models, they have like the white and black camo wrap on it. So it's a black and white camo wrap, but the car is as boxy and like simple as you can imagine it. So you can tell every single line on it as well. But so like a camo wrapped truck asking you to invest in an Instagram ad with like 90 likes on it.
Yeah. If you click on it or Google the company, you can go to their website where they say they're going to make an electric vehicle platform that you can put all sorts of vehicles on. They're starting with a pickup truck called the XT, 500-mile range, blah, blah, blah. Right at the top, there's a big red invest button.
Hell yeah.
And this is the perfect like summary of all of the different EV like things that I've seen over the years. Here, look, they even show you, here's how much money we've raised, and here's how many investors we have. First of all, you can make one, where do I even start? Okay, let me just start with this. Tesla changed the game pretty seriously. Okay, like the dealership method where if you wanted to go buy a car, what did you do? You went to a dealership, you haggled a little bit, you bought the car from the dealership, not directly from the company. So Tesla changes the game a little bit. They go direct to consumer. They sell cars online. And in order to have people buy cars online, but not necessarily just buy them willy-nilly and then cancel, they go, okay, there's a $100 reservation fee. Then we'll build your car, and then you can get it and pay full price when you pick it up.
That was like the old way of doing it. It had
still
the $100 reservation.
I think it's $100 for a Model 3.
Because I remember when the Cybertruck came out, it was like the $100 refundable reservation fee. And that's the first time I remember that.
I think even today it might be $1,000 or $500 just to know that people are serious.
It's like a deposit, right?
Exactly. You put a deposit in to get your spot in line. They will start building the car to your order. And then when it's done, you can pick it up and pay the full price there.
And is that refundable or not? It's not refundable. Okay. I think that's the difference.
Some of them are. I think this one might be.
Cybertruck is refundable. Generally, a deposit is non-refundable.
Yeah, I don't know if this one's refundable or not, but it is just to keep people from just ordering tons of stuff for no reason, right? So then we got used to like this online reservation of getting your spot in line for an EV. And then Tesla kept doing it. They did it with Model S. They've done it with now trucks and cars that haven't shipped yet still years later. So they did it with, actually, here's the crazy one, the Roadster. Yeah. A lot of people don't know this, but the Tesla Roadster is going to be a base $250,000 car, right? But if you want to order a Tesla Roadster, you'd have to send them $5,000 reservation fee, and then within 10 days, send them $45,000 more to secure your place in line.
Yep.
So it's one fee just to get your name down, and then another fee, which is a part of the price of the car, to get your name like locked in place, not refundable. And then you pay the rest when you get it. Even worse. Even worse, the Founders Edition, which is one of the first 1,000. We don't really know too many other details about the Founders Edition Roadster, but the Founders Edition,
the color is a different red, right?
Slightly different red, sure. Which is $250,000, is $5,000 deposit to get your name down, and then within 10 days, the entire rest of the $250,000. So you pay $245,000 more to get your spot in line to be one of the first 1,000 Tesla Roadsters. Here's the fun fact. That was in 2017 when they rolled it off the truck, and they've been selling those out ever since. But let's say you ordered on day one. Within 10 days, you put down your $250,000. If you put that same $250,000 anywhere else, you would have made money off of it. But instead, you just gave Tesla an interest-free loan of $250,000. If you'd put that money in Tesla stock, for example, I think we calculated that would be worth something like $3.5 million right now.
I think
from being that long ago.
Yeah, it's
unbelievable.
It's a crazy amount of money.
So, there's all these companies that are seeing how well this pre-order method works. It's good for Cybertruck, for example. It's really good for showing interest, demonstrating interest in the product, and for attracting investors in general. So when you get to say, hey, we made one really cool EV, paraded it around, and attracted 1,000 reservations, it's kind of like Shark Tank. You're like, oh, so you just need the money to make it now, right? And then you'll go out and make the thing. But so many of these companies just haven't made the thing. They just don't make the thing. So they just take all the money, parade it around, make one really cool EV, which is the easiest part, parade it around, get as many reservations as possible from regular people, parade that number around, get as much investor money as possible, and then disappear. Faraday Future, Lordstown Motors, Maybe Faraday's not gone, but that's basically what happened. It was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it is very, very rare that one actually makes enough money in that parading the car around stage to actually make the car.
Yeah.
That's why it's so rare. We got like Rivian is new. We got Lucid is new. And then some others I checked out around the same time don't exist.
Lucid took a long time, though.
Lucid took a long time, and they're
very
just
long
starting to ship. Rivian took a long time. They're only shipping 25,000 cars next year. Like, it's very hard to scale up a car company, and ask Tesla. They're the last ones to do it at scale. But yeah, it's crazy how many like of these we're starting to see.
Well, and I think knowing that is what made this specific Atlas vehicle like very, very strange to us,
crazy.
because it's like we had never heard of this, and we're pretty. I mean, if you listen to Waveform, we talk about any EV news possible
There's a
because
lot.
it's interesting,
There's
and
plenty.
it's like it's the big thing going on right now. It's what's changing in technology, and EVs are big. And I'd never heard of this company, and the first time we're seeing it is in an Instagram ad to invest in it.
Not even to buy the truck. They're just straight to like,
Yes,
all right, we're crowdfunding.
Exactly. Like,
Just give us
you've never
money.
heard this. Invest in us now. It says they've raised $5 million with 3,500 investors. Interesting. But I've heard absolutely nothing from this. And actually, I just realized, do you see what the URL for this is?
AtlasMotorVehicles.com.
Oh, okay. I'm in a different part, I guess. It's investinatlas.com.
Oh, it does take you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So-
So here's the formula, right? So I've narrowed it down. This is the exact formula of making billions of dollars. Step 1, make a nice drawing of an EV, something
Or
that would sell a lot.
A render, yeah, something.
If you got to make up some features, if you have to, do it.
like a drone that flies out of the back.
Yeah, drawing the flies out of the back, something crazy. Just make it look nice. Step 2, design a whole web page around that one really cool EV. Doesn't have to be real. Just make a nice looking web page for it. Step 3, get enough money. This is the hard part, to make one of them. Just one. Make a really nice, like, it doesn't matter how much you spend on it, just make one really nice EV. Parade that car around to as many people as possible, put on an event, send people to the web page, and make sure you have a big red reserve button on that web page. At some point, make people able to pay, I don't know, $100, whatever. Just get people in the door, hitting the reserve button. When you get a bunch of people that have seen, wow, this one EV you made, that's a great idea and it's totally real. And then they go to the webpage and they see, look at all these other cool features it's going to have. It's totally real. They'll totally reserve, right? Step, I don't know, what are we on, 3 or 4?
Feels like some like scam class.
Profit. Yeah, no. Next step is take that number of reservations and parade it around to people with billions of dollars. Look at what we just did. We have this great idea. They don't know if it's real or not. We have this great truck. We only made one, but it doesn't matter. And we're going to make so much money if we can just make like millions of these trucks, whatever EV, and get them to invest in your company so you can tell them that you're going to build a factory and scale up production and really make this thing for real. Tell as many of them as possible, get as much money as possible, and step 5 is good luck with the rest, which is if you can actually build the factory and the tools in the factory and the robots and everything and hire all these people and engineers and maybe even poach them from other failed companies and put them all together and stir hard enough, maybe you can ship a couple more of these things. But yeah, we've seen so many examples of this. I mean, Lordstown basically followed this exact formula, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, this is one thing I found really funny when we were like looking into this video is some of these websites just feel like they don't even care. Like the Lordstown website,
It's weird.
the photography is atrocious. The website is terrible. There's like 50 different fonts.
But they just
The
have to make it look
design-
like a good product. That's
it
all.
doesn't look like a good product by the
No, the
website,
product
though.
looks cool.
Okay,
the
guess.
website doesn't look great, but the product, if it was real, that'd be so sick.
All the pictures are taken with like an iPhone SE in the dark and nothing is like level. It's just brutal. Like you look at something like that as just anyone who uses e-commerce shops and you look at it and just think, there's no way this is how little they care about the presentation of
Look,
it. And
if you got a big
buy a
reserve button,
car,
that's all you need.
I guess. I kind of want to talk about, because one thing you mentioned was like, give it a bunch of features and you need features to stand out.
Yep.
And this Atlas car has some wild claims. I
Just
think,
promise the world, and if you get enough money, you can hire engineers who will figure it out.
yeah,
But it doesn't have to be
this
real.
is like more than promise. How long does it take you if you wanted to charge your Tesla right now from 1 to 100, all the way to 100? On the
on
fastest
a
charger
supercharger,
possible.
45.
This
50?
claims it can do it in 15 minutes.
Cool. Yeah, great.
That's
For sure.
just like at that point you're just lying. I feel like I mean,
But we're
sure.
gonna hire engineers though, with all the money from your
Oh
investment.
man, like listen, I hope they can get to 15 minutes. And what's crazy is 15 minutes is still 4 or 5 times longer than it takes to gas up a vehicle. So you're still not quite at that time. But this is claiming 0 to 100, 15 minutes, any conditions. It should be fast, affordable, and consistent all the time.
I bet it should be. But
I
yeah. Yeah, and everyone has a slightly different take on it. Like Lordstown was going to do trucks. This Atlas company, every time, by the way, anytime I ever talk about these companies, one of them reaches out like, oh, can we talk more about it? I'm just telling you right now, I'm not interested until you ship something. So I'm not. But this company says they're going to do an EV platform so they can build a bunch of different bodies on top.
I think that's really interesting.
Similar to what Canoe was trying to do. And
more in like a fleet version. And this is fleet as well. I kind of like this. They're taking the EV skateboard wheel design, letting you build something on top of it because almost all EVs have that similar design.
Great idea.
I think that part in itself is really cool. But then like talking about 15-minute battery charging and just like some of the things they're promising on here seem wild when at the same time you're buying Instagram ads to invest into the company. That just seems like such a reach.
I would love to see
desperate move.
I would love to see one of these go on Shark Tank and try to explain themselves. Actually, I would really love that because then you'd have to
see how investors.
Yeah, you'd have to have you'd roll out the one truck you made. And you'd be like, look at this product. It's going to change the world. But wait, it's not just a product, Mr. Wonderful. It's a licensing deal because we make the platform and we can sell this platform to anyone who wants to electrify their cars. It's a great idea. And they go, oh, what's the market size for this? It's cars. It's a bajillion-dollar market. They've got all this prep. They've got this beautiful website. And by the way, we've got 10,000 people who have already reserved one. We just need your money to invest to start making this thing right now. And then Mr. Wonderful goes, all right, well, how many sales do you have? And they're like, well, we haven't actually made any yet, but we have a lot of reservations and a lot of interest. And then you go, all right, well, how much money do you need? And they go, $50 billion. And they go, oh,
0.1% in the company.
Yeah, we need a lot more money than you're willing to invest right now.
Yeah. And I just want to make it clear, like, all of these EV companies, I hope succeed. I would like all of them to succeed.
Almost all of them, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Someone's got a bit more of a gripe going then. Yeah. But like, it just feels like it's hurting. Oh man, I don't know if I even want to say that, but just like, I don't know. This website itself just feels kind of like a slap in the face to some of the other ones. And I hope they're developing technology to make a 15. Like, you've got a couple really cool things here. Crazy fast charging battery. You have a platform that you can design different types of trucks on to meet the needs of the fleets you have and stuff like that.
Great idea.
All of those ideas are really cool, but like when you say all of them are coming together and just a giant button to just invest money in it without seeing much feels,
I think,
sketchy at best.
The reason I'm like trying to package all these thoughts into one video and like, hey, maybe it's a waveform clip right now, but we'll figure this out.
Yeah.
But like, I do think it kind of does hurt the potential of a lot of the industry in general. Like when it gets so sketchy to try to decide what to buy. We've had people come by at work, like when we have the Rivian out and we're shooting it, people are like, that's the thing. That's the Rivian. I want one. I actually already have an order in. I wonder when I'll get one. And I'm like, I can't tell you when you're going to get it. Maybe someday soon. And at least we have one here, but that situation is a lot worse for some other ones. I made a video about the Faraday Future. Knowing what I know now, I would definitely have hesitated to make that video. Yeah. Like we saw the Lucid Air 5 years ago, and it's finally just starting to ship. How many others are we going to point a camera at? That never happened.
Lucid Air was like basically almost fully working prototype that we drove in. And to us, we're like, okay, this is a step further, because that was the year after Faraday Future, I believe. I started the CES after you saw the Faraday Future, and I thought it was really cool. And then we're like, oh man, we haven't seen much, and it was pretty bare bones. oh, but here's the Lucid. This has like, we're going to drive in it. And the only thing didn't really work was like the air conditioning or something.
Yeah.
So we thought it was right around the corner.
I thought they were about to ship. And that's the thing. Like, and I bet Elon said basically a version of this before, but like, yeah, making the first one is easy. So the fact that they had a really good single working prototype for us to drive in, it's a good sign, which means, hey, you can source parts, build motors, make a nice interior, fit and finish is like cool to see that type of stuff. Great, you hired the right people to make that one. But the hard part is making 1 million of them. And the gap between making that one really good and mass producing in a way that can sustain a company is huge. It's gargantuan. So that would be my point of the video, is trying to highlight like what this stuff does to people's minds when they start seeing so many of them that they don't know what's real anymore.
Yeah. It and just like to reiterate here, these are just our opinions quickly. Like we don't know much about this company. Maybe they do great. I'm sure they wouldn't be happy about us saying all this.
Please
but like,
ship one.
But like, this is just what we're seeing in our thoughts when we pay attention to this all the time. And it's getting to the point where it feels weird, I guess. And we just want to try and put our thoughts out on that.
It's funny. I see so many new ones. This is the other thing I want to probably include is there's a difference between a new company promising an EV and an existing company promising an EV, because at least that existing company is already mass producing cars.
Yeah.
So we feel like we have some basis to go by, like, oh, okay, we know what their fit and the finish will be like. We know how many they'll be able to make. Like, it seems like they've got a good head start rather than like trying to crowdfund from zero into Ford.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, I know we've talked about this before, and I think both of us kind of wonder which side's the better option for this, because you have Tesla, who created a great product and all the super beneficial things of EV and smart car and driving and all that together. But manufacturing is what they really had to learn, and they're still really working on that. Where you have someone like Ford, who has the Mustang or the Mach-E and stuff like that, who has production down pat. I mean, like, it's like the pinnacle of production, but then they're used to gas powered, the EV, smart stuff like that. They're not a software company. It's so which one of those is going to catch up to the other side first? Where are they going to cross paths and then kind of equalize? But then starting from new is just a whole, when you don't have the experience on either end, it's a lot harder. And
that's
I get
the fun
it.
thing.
It's hard.
Yeah, I mean, to sort of put a pin on this, I made a video a while ago. I think it was called like Dear Tesla Competitors or something like that. I think it might have been around the Rivian.
It might have just been like Dear EVs or something.
Something like that. But basically what you just said, like, okay, Tesla's here, poor manufacturing, great EV tech and like ideas, trending towards getting better manufacturing.
Exactly.
And then you have the like Fords and Mercedes of the world who can manufacture a car trying to get better at the EV thing. And when do they meet in the middle and get better at the thing they're bad at? And what does that look like? Do you think that Mercedes and Ford will get to be a really good software company, an EV company first? Or do you think Tesla will get to be a really good manufacturing company first?
Yeah.
I don't know what's harder. I don't know what's more or less realistic, but that's the thing that we're watching. That's the fascinating thing.
Yeah.
So I want to actually recommend a piece of content to watch. I haven't done that in a while.
Yeah.
It's a YouTube video. Jason Camissa, he's one of my favorite car video hosts ever. He does a really great job. And he just reviewed the Lucid Air.
Okay.
Super
good. That was that
good.
really, I've been tagged in that video so many times. I just haven't gotten a minute to watch it.
It's a great video. He compares it to the Mercedes like S-Class, obviously.
Okay.
And we did get a chance to look at the EQS, which is sort of a similar in class. But he's like, look, the Lucid is built by a startup redesigning EVs from the ground up. Like, same dimensions of a car, but it has a front trunk because Mercedes just put stuff in the front and doesn't have a front trunk. Like, watch that video. Not only is it super well done, but it shines a light on the difference between the Lucids and startups of the world and the Mercedeses of the world that we're talking about all the time. So it's a good one.
I think this is just like, this rant turned into more of a rant than I was expecting, even though our document literally just has the website title and rant under it.
No notes.
But like, I think that's proof we've been working on this video for a little bit. Hopefully it comes out pretty soon. But every time we seem to take one step deeper into like learning about this, we just have more questions.
It's like quicksand.
Yeah, it really has been like that. So Thanks everyone for listening. This was a pretty unscripted ending here that went all over the place. So if you're confused, rightfully so.
Same.
But I hope you stuck around for it. Yeah, that's it. Video soon, hopefully.
Yeah, look out for it. Catch you guys next week. Peace.
Waveform is produced by Adam Molina. We are partnered with Vox Media, and our intro-outro music was created by Vane Sill. Please leave that in. Please leave that in.